Welcome back. Going to be doing a walkthrough of Friday's PA, as I think it's just a good lesson overall, just the weekly PA in general. So let's go ahead and get into it. So starting off, like we do every week, we look at the previous week's close. So let's kind of analyze the past couple weeks here. What did price do? So we started off with an expansion, right? And then we got a inside bar. Well, a new phase of price essentially, where you do have an S&P here, right? But if you look at these two candles, right, what are they really used for? Just a retracement, right? You see the weakest asset here is having a just all assets are having this really weak closure. So see how this really weak closure, very small bodied candle. It's inside barring between this previous week here. So this is how you typically know that it's just a retracement. If there's no true reversal signature, it's just a retracement, right? What can we retrace into? A gap, right? Or this gap. So you see that ES traded into this gap, this more closer proximity gap, where YM, the weakest asset, traded into this gap here, which creates a SMT fill, which is just a fancy word for gap SMT. We're seeing that NQ did not create a gap, right? So you have a two-stage SMT essentially here, right? Because we did not take out the previous week's low simply on NQ, and we did not reach into this gap. So you're seeing that NQ has that two-stage SMT, which is showing strength. This is why you see the strongest close here, right? Closing above the previous week's high. This one barely does, or like equal highs, and you clearly see that YM is the reversal candle. So this would be an A and B reversal. And notice how this asset over here, the leading asset, failed to manipulate this high, which, and even in this weakest asset, has a candle 2 closure. So these are all really strong signatures for bullishness, right? So with that previous week's closure, what would we expect? Internal to external, we have the SMT, we have the candle closure. I mean, what else do we need, right? So now we want to see an expansion candle away from that SMT or away from that candle 2 closure on the weekly time frame on YM. Now for NQ and ES, since they more so closed a bullish expansion candle, we would simply want it to respect the upper half of this previous bullish expansion candle, right? So really, to put it simply, this is all we really want, is we're looking around this opening price. We obviously want a small wick, so therefore you need to have a key level around the opening price. You need to form a reversal around that opening price to basically create that small wick. So this key level can be within the previous candle's range, or maybe we can reverse if this is the weekly candle. Maybe we can reverse off of a previous day's low, so maybe Monday, Tuesday's low, or something like that, right? Where we're actually using it as a reversal point. So dropping lower to the daily chart, what do we have here? So if you see here, this is the previous week's range. Here's ES, we're expanding, right? And notice how we're failing to manipulate this swing point on both assets here. So you're seeing that the previous week, what did we actually form? A gap right below the weekly open. So you see how this would be the perfect area for price to form the low of the week. Now, whether that's Monday opens low into it first or we trade into it later on, it doesn't really matter. Now, ideally, we want candles to open low first and expand higher. Yeah, that's for every candle, but since this open high is formed on Monday, we can obviously expand. If we form reversal Tuesday, we can have enough time to expand, of course, right? Have that small wick as well. So we see that we have this key level position below the weekly open. It has to reverse here or continue from here. If it doesn't, then obviously our bullish bias would be invalidated. But there's some really key things to look at here. So you see that Monday expands higher first, which creates an SMT with Friday's high, as you see. So this would tell us that now we're going to retrace back in the range, right? So price just moves from SMT to SMT, right? So boom, you have this SMT here. Now, why would this be a valid SMT? Well, a couple of reasons. Well, for one, you have this asset closing a very weak closure, and there is a two-stage SMT within this candle close, right? So if the previous day formed an SMT and a two-stage SMT, then what can the next day do? It should reverse, right, into this key level now. You can trade this reversal day too, because it's at this relevant level, right? So you could trade this as basically, and I don't remember if I did. I can't even remember, to be honest. I'd have to look at the PA. I literally don't even remember what I had for breakfast. So, but anyways, with this candle closure on Tuesday, it becomes very, very, very obvious that what should happen, right? Because notice how this asset over here, which is YM, these highs got taken out a long time ago on NQ and ES, and look, they failed to manipulate them, right? Um, what do you notice about Tuesday's close though? Look at NQ, Tuesday's close, bearish expansion candle, and then Tuesday over here on YM, it's a bullish reversal candle. So now that is a strength switch, so that YM can essentially catch up and take out all these highs, right? And I also marked out this high here because we more so failed to manipulate the high, right? Because obviously this inside candle here, even the weakest asset right prior that created the SMT over here, had a very bullish signature, right? That V-shaped signature, that is a reversal signature. And then you have price really just returning back to the range, and then we're just consolidating, right? This is an inside bar. So when price manipulates that inside bar low with SMT, obviously, and we form that cracking correlation via candle close, that gives us the insight that this is a potential low of the week, right? Look at that small wick, right? That deviation from the low. This is kind of like that protraction profile where maybe that day or that week kind of opens high first if you're, bullish, and then it comes lower to create the wick. That's also fine, as long as it creates that, I guess opposing run, kind of the way we don't really want it ideally. If it is that early on candle, it's still fine, right? And then this is the real opposing run. It's the actual creation, the protraction of the candle. If it forms the low and the reversal low early on in that candle, it can still expand, obviously, right? And has that small wick as well. So we have that reversal candle, obviously on ES, so we can engage which asset's kind of the strongest here. It's YM and ES, to get expansion towards these highs. So we clearly see with Wednesday's close, we failed to manipulate this high very clearly, right? We expand right through it. So that was a really good day, right? So look at Wednesday, we trade into all these highs, where over here on NQ, it creates an SMT here, but we don't care about the SMT because we know it's going to be just a retracement. So you're going to see this next day, if I zoom in here, actually creates equal highs here, damn near, as you see, which creates an SMT here, which this is a two-stage SMT, which I did short this day. Now, with this close though, and just with this weekly candle, what is this weekly candle? What is it already? What can it not be? This weekly candle has already expanded away from the open. So this eliminates the possibility for a bearish expansion candle. So even with this close, like this close, this inside bar here, and you're going to see that this asset closes bullish. This asset is just really having a strong close where, yeah, it's a bearish reversal candle, but look at the large wick at, towards the lows. This is obviously a nice signature. We're just traded back in the range, back into the weekly range in this opposing candle, etc. So this is still pointing bullish. This phase of price would just be retracement to me, just coming back in the weekly range. And it's more so like consolidation retracement, especially when you actually view the price action in this leg here. It's very, again, look like a consolidation to me, right? So, or a retracement. So look at the candle closes. You see that this asset is closing, or this asset is opening near the previous low. This asset is the farthest away. So we can already anticipate SMT forming, right? You can actually anticipate SMT forming. If this asset is opening near the previous low and near this fair value gap, then obviously we can take out that previous candle's low. But if these assets are opening the farthest away, we know that they are less likely to take out that low, which would create that SMT, right? So this is also a PSP, right, where ES is bullish, bearish. So that's not only a cracking correlation, but now you have a two-stage cracking correlation via previous candles, highs and lows, right? So that's already a form of two-stage SMT that we know of. And now you also have an SMT fill, right, where it's not just any, swing point, or not any just cracking correlation, it's with a gap as well. So again, we mentioned SMT fill earlier, where it's simply just a gap SMT basically. And what's also important is we mentioned that this is an expansion candle, right? If I go to the weekly candle, notice how it's an expansion candle, right? So if this is going to be a retracement, right? If we're going to close an expansion candle, then this retracement has to stop somewhere, right? And that would be the perfect area would be this fair value gap. And the reason why we know it's going to continue expansion on Friday is because of the SMT, because of that gap SMT. So when you have the SMT, right, then obviously that's a reversal. So we know that we should continue on Friday. Um, so with that on the daily chart, right, really makes sense to go higher, especially given the lower time frame PA that kind of confirms us. Now we're going to get into the profiling. This is more so the higher time frame logic for longs. Now let's dive into the 4-hour chart here. So this is a bit interesting, a bit of a weird profile because again, look at the daily chart. We continue higher. So again, here's that previous day's high. This is Wednesday's high. No, this is Thursday. Wait, what the fuck? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. This is I guess where's Thursday's high at? It's technically right here. Whatever. Basically, let's just look at the swing point high. That's kind of what I wanted to get to you guys. We have the swing point high, which there's no failure to manipulate, or sorry, there's no manipulation here at all, right? It's just kind of like price just kind of struggling. This is exactly what a consolidation is, right? Every time we take it a high, like literally every time we take it a high, we come back in the range, right? We're not displacing lower. This is a consolidation. Consolidations can look many different ways. So when you see the weakest asset is also consolidating, look at this weakest asset. It's not expanding lower, so what is it doing? It's consolidating. So when the weakest asset is consolidating, this is a really good sign that as soon as you create some sort of SMT, we will expand away. Now, another thing to mention is the profile, the actual daily candle profile, because it actually opens high first, which is not like ideal, right? That's not ideal to see. As you see, it opens high first and then it comes lower. We're going to see the low of the day is formed at a relevant time. You're going to see that we're not anticipating a huge move necessarily, even though it offers a decent one. So another thing that's really important is, while this asset over here has some sort of SMT that's, again, not relevant because look at this high here, this 1400 high. But mark that out. Yeah, there's an SMT there, right? But if you go to these other assets, 1400 high is right here. It did not manipulate it. So again, this is another reason why this SMT here is fake. It's for the short term. It's just a consolidation. It's just a retracement. So what could cap off this retracement on the weakest asset? Because we know that this asset is going to retrace because it's the weakest one. Well, it's that fair value gap high or this relevant low on the 4-hour chart. So as soon as this asset trades into this low, this is the trigger for expansion on all assets, right? So it's not this 6 a.m. candle. You see this 6 a.m. candle on NQ. You see how it's a bullish candle on ES. It's just nothing really important. It does form an SMT here, and over here it's nothing either. So 9:30 did nothing. 9:30 did absolutely nothing, and this is how you know it's a bullish day, because we can't really reverse at this point at 9:30. We can't go higher until we take this low up. So if 9:30 can't even displace us lower, that's a bullish signature. That's showing us that we're not bearish, right? If we're bearish, then we would displace lower immediately. All assets would expand lower. But we're going to see there's some decoupling, which is a dead giveaway that we will indeed go higher. But with this closure, the 6 a.m. candle is pretty significant actually with the closes, because we see this is a bearish candle. This is a bearish candle. This is a bullish candle. So this tells us that Inkiko is the strongest asset. But we also have not only the SMT, yeah, but we also have a strength switch SMT here, because what we have over here on this 6 a.m. candle is this 6 a.m. candle never took out 2 a.m.'s low, which forms a divergence there, right? But over here, the 6 a.m. candle did take out 2 a.m.'s candles low over here. So what this is showing you, with the bullish SMT like this, it's showing that ES is stronger, but look at the close, 6 a.m., where this one over here is closing bullish when it should be bearish because it took out 6 a.m.'s low. I'm sorry if that's a little confusing, but that is a strength switch, right? Now, I'm only marking out this new day opening gap. I don't really use the previous day's new day opening gap, but it's only because this is the failure swing asset. And ideally, with the failure swing asset, you want the failure swing to be printed at some key level, but obviously, this is a consolidation, so there's no gaps in the range, right? So, again, that's another reason why this low should be taken out. there's literally nothing to kind of, it's just consolidation, right? So the way we want to leave consolidation is ideally manipulation, but we do have this key level. It's not really a key level, but it's just kind of like confluence, right? We're holding this level, which is good, obviously, right? So we have the 6 a.m. candle close, but we're not going to gauge until YM hits this key level, right? Because if the weakest asset's not going to reverse, then the other assets won't reverse, right? This is kind of how trades work. So as soon as this asset hits this level, now there's a reason for even the weakest asset to expand. So as soon as the weakest asset expands, of course the stronger assets can expand, right? So that's what we're waiting for here. Now let's drop lower. Now, here's the hourly perspective where we expand, we consolidate before the driver. So I want the driver to go and manipulate, right? Which it does do. It manipulates this low, but again, this is not relevant. This low is not relevant, guys. This low right here. Because if I mark out that same low on YM, it's a failure swing. I don't give a shit about this failure swing. I want this 9 a.m. candle that you're seeing. This bearish candle, this 9 a.m. candle. I want it to manipulate this low. This is the relevant level. So as you see, when we go to lower time frames, you're going to see that NQ is expanding higher while YM expanding lower. That's the coupling, right? Those are two assets that are not correlated. And when this happens, the middle asset generally is going to be consolidating. You never want to trade the middle asset, right? So you're going to see weights, right? Even over here, you're seeing that this is a very retracement signature, right? We're having all these failure swing even on the weakest asset. There's not a bearish signature at all. Look at these deep retracements back in the range. That's not a bearish signature. So I'm very, very one-sided bullish here. I'm just waiting, right? So as soon as we take out this low at 10 a.m., so basically if 6 a.m. didn't reverse, then 10 a.m. has to reverse. So here's 10 a.m. reversal, opening low, right? Creating that SMT, right? So here's 10 a.m. open over here. That 9 a.m. close, look at that 9 a.m. close. It's the strongest out of all three. This is a bearish close. This is a bullish close, actually creating an order block. And over here, this is a bearish close. And again, you can see that strength switch, right? This asset's creating a higher high, should close bullish, but we're seeing the opposite. This asset over here is creating a lower low, and we're creating a bullish candle, right? There's that strength switch. So now dropping lower to the 30-minute. Here you can really see that 930 did nothing. So here's 930. It just took out this high, and then it's coming lower, right? 930 over here, though, is expanding. This is good to see, right? But we're waiting, right? So here is 10 a.m. open right here, right? This is what we want to see. We want to see it trade lower. And notice how the weakest asset over here is putting in a reversal candle. This is really good to see, right? It's putting in that reversal candle, which obviously is creating that SMT. So now this is really important. Now we're just going to wait for a entry signature. Really, that's really all we have to do. But I'm going to tell you what I entered on personally. So how do I know they're going to continue? Well, if we fail to manipulate this high right here, this is a relevant high, right? If there's nothing really in close proximity to this high, maybe you could count this high, but it's not even a relevant swing. It's kind of a small pullback. I'm kind of doing this more larger pullback, and this high is the relevant swings. So if you fail to manipulate this high, that's adding narrative that we will continue through it and trade into this, right? There's only two things you can do at a relevant swing. It's either continue through it or you manipulate it. So if you don't manipulate it, then we're going to continue through it. That's my logic there, right? So 10 a.m. is opening here, and if 10 a.m. low on YM was manipulated with SMT, then this 10 a.m. low should be protected, right? So you could have entered early on, but I decided to wait. And here's what I waited for. So, hold on. I guess it's with this. I think I marked it wrong. Yeah, it's with this. So once we expanded away from that 10 o'clock candle, this is what happened, right? So notice how ES expanded quite a bit. So look at that expansion away from the open. What is this doing? We talked about this in the weekly candle. When a price expands away from the opening price, right, that is eliminating the possibility for an opposing expansion candle. So if it's expanding bullish, it can't be a bearish expansion candle. So this is adding to the narrative, right? And when it expands away from the open, much like this weekly candle did, since expansion away, it's going to create key levels, right? Look at this key level. So here's Tuesday, the low of the week. When it expands away from that low of that candle, it's creating key levels that we can continue from. So that's exactly what we're doing here on the 30-minute chart. Look at this gap they're creating, right? If we're going to continue 10 a.m., we should continue from this gap. What do we also see? Look at this continuation signature rate. What do we have here? Consolidation, right? Expansion, fair to manipulate high, fair to manipulate high, because obviously a consolidation, it's not a manipulation signature rate. So this would be consolidation and a manipulation into that gap, which creates SMT with YM. So this is what I'm entering on, right? I'm entering basically the low of this pullback, basically, right? Confirmed by SMT. So you're gonna go into, I'm gonna show you my lower time frame in a minute, but there's also a two-stage SMT, right? Because this previous candle, 11 a.m., as you see, this 11 a.m. candle. If I mark out the opening price of that 11 a.m. candle, it's right here. Also has a small wick, so it can be what? An expansion candle. I'm always showing expansion candles. But it's also a bullish close, where this asset's bearish. So again, we talked about this earlier. We can already anticipate an SMT forming here because this asset's closing, or opening near the low of this candle. And this one is opening the farthest away. So it creates that two-stage SMT. And that's why I know that this pullback should most likely end here, right, on the weakest asset. And obviously the middle asset should end its expansion here. And also, we also had these highs still available even on YM, right? So there's a reason to go higher even on the weakest asset. So that's obviously, look how close we are at this point to this high, which is that previous day's high, or actually the overnight sessions technically. So that, there's still upside potential here, right? It's very obvious. So when I drop lower down to my lower time frame, now we're just viewing this on the 5 minutes, right? So here's that consolidation, clearly not a reversal signature. We know that. This SMT that you're seeing here, if I go back, yeah, there's an SMT here. But again, we can filter out SMT like this. We know that SMT, we know when it should be a reversal, when it should be a retracement, right? Every single retracement and reversal in the market has an SMT, every single one. It's your ability to filter whether that's a reversal or retracement to actually trade, to filter price, right? So you need to understand that, and that's really your job, right? So you don't get caught up in pattern trade. But as soon as you create this SMT, this is when I enter, right? Because I know that these are at, on the other assets, these are at levels where we should expect some sort of expansion, right? To cap that retracement off, right? ES is in a gap, YM is creating a two-stage SMT, really in an opposing candle if I show you, that hourly opposing candle. So I know that it should expand, right? So that's when I just enter as soon as we create the SMT. It's around here, right? And I'm TPing, not when NQ hits its high, but when ES hits its high. So this is another thing where you can get more out of your trades when assets are both reversing. So clearly they're both reversing, they're both high in the range. They're going to both hit the draw on liquidity, right? Just because an SMT doesn't mean it's going to reverse. So boom, as soon as we hit this high, so look here, 1225, 1225 open is up here. So I'm getting a little bit more out of it, right? Instead of like, what is this, 2.7R? The opening price of this candle, it hasn't even hit it, is right here. So that's almost 4R. So I think I exit around 4R exactly when we hit this high. So that was my trade, guys. 10 a.m. GxT, right? So let's just recap it real quick, right? 6 a.m. reversal, 10 a.m. continuation. 10 a.m. is opening up within that swing formation, right? So 10 a.m. is right here, but I'm trading the 11 o'clock candle, right? Which is protected by SMT here because this, as you see over here, is very lackluster, right? The early part of 10 a.m. on this asset was kind of lackluster on ES. If you actually look, as you see over here, we did open low, or kind of opened right here, right? Open low. And then we had this close here. Like you could enter here, but I wanted to enter it in Q, and this stuff was just too shitty. Like these opposing candle sizes were a little bit they're just ugly, right? It's kind of consolidation, like literally looks like consolidation. So therefore I'm just waiting for expansion again, right? And what is the trigger for expansion? It's SMT always. So that's what I waited for. Simple as that. So hopefully you guys learned something. Catch you guys later.